Okay, good evening and welcome to the Crystal and Pentagon City Council. It's April 3rd meeting. The overall mission of the CPCC is to provide with staff support, periodic monitoring, evaluation, identification of emerging issues, potential solutions on all dimensions of implementing Crystal City and Pentagon City sector plans to assure achievement of the plan's goals and objectives over the life of plans. Our quorum is 9, so we're going to have a quorum tonight, and we're holding this hybrid meeting in accordance with the CPCC e-meeting policy adopted 13 April 2023. So our agenda tonight, if you can see it, we'll have some opening remarks. We can go into review of the CIP priorities letter that we sent to the county manager in late December. We'll talk about the green ribbon, the library, and the biannual report. But first, let's start with welcoming some new members and some old members. So reappointed for terms this last month, Susan English, Ann Van Hine, and Rob Mandel, who's not with us tonight. And then we have some new folks. Not so new is Jake Corballis, you know him at so many other venues, but he's taken over for Taylor Lodge, who's going to go back to his day job, I guess. And so welcome, Jay. We've got Gio Vasilla here from Brookfield. Rich Fernicola, you knew him. Gia's was supported Rich in a lot of activities, and so Rich has moved on, and Gia's going to take. And then we have Meg Flores beside me from the Transportation Commission, and Megan, she's a local resident, so welcome. The other thing that happens, Robert Bond, who's not here this evening, he's going to take on the vice chair role for CPCC. And so that's going to be nice to have Robert coming into that role and providing the same kind of guidance that Taylor was providing. Okay, and then we have our new county member liaison this evening, Caucus Karen. Welcome, Caucus. Would you like to provide some remarks?
I will. Despite the fact I forgot my numbers, I really have prepared. So, but this is a good thing because I know what I want to say. First of all, I volunteered for that role to be your liaison. But I sought it. I sought to get that because when we the planning board distributes the workload, and so this division of labor is, you need to convince your peers that the position is the right one, that you will rhyme and work with other parts of your portfolio. So I attempted that last year and I didn't succeed. And this year it was a charm, so it worked. I am extremely excited about what is happening here. This is Arlington's most, I would dare to say, among the most interesting, if not the most interesting place right now, from many aspects. And I want to call myself an urbanist. I'm basically a resident, has been walking the streets here. I live on Columbia Pike, as you know, which is a backpack community, or you are our backpack community. So I've been roaming the streets for 20 years, and this has been an amazing journey here. I would never have thought that I would honestly say that Crystal Drive is today probably the best, the most interesting street we have in Arlington. And I'm not kidding. Find me another one. Definitely we won't be able to find another one that has evolved that fast and in such a good urbanist quality that it is beginning to deliver today. That has overcome significant obstacles, but has also attracted significant investment, and it's connected, and it has public spaces, and it's careful in how it accommodates different models of transportation and produces, has a culture embedded in that, entertainment and everything else. So I would never have thought 15 years ago that this would be the case. Today it is. So I think good things have happened from the national landing. And for me, it's important to when 2202 livability initiative started, I thought, first we arrived at a place where the residents of Arlington who live in the corridor take the reins and begin to engage also politically and say, this is the kind of town we want to live. I remember testimony before the county board on a nondescript sector plan on the Roslyn-Boston corridor, where a fellow resident, he came to the podium and said, I live in Courthouse, and you know something, we are neighborhoods too. Because, the idea was that neighborhoods are, the usual suspects. The single family home makes sense in neighborhoods, of which we have in the sector too, right? But it was he was assuming that we were forgetting. So when I saw 22202, I said, wow, that's now happening. These neighborhoods are now beginning to rise and to formulate what a town, what they need. So I want to be a conveyor belt for that, and also to the degree I can a champion. I really believe in what you're doing. I cannot be more thankful for this, and I'm more interested. So we had a few meetings with Mike and others over the last couple of months, 2 or 3 months. A lot of good ideas came up. I do understand where your focus is. Granted, we were very under the impression of the arena, and Ted Leonce's big plans were there in Pentagon Yard. But nevertheless, they opened our eyes, because if the arena is not happening, that doesn't mean that Pentagon Yards won't develop. And this is it's a dozen of million of square feet of development potential still there, arena or not arena. And you bet this will be very impactful to us here, and we'll have to work with that. The green ribbon, one of the first complete sector plans that as I was elected in 2020 was the Pentagon City Plan, and green ribbon was the big introduction, right? There's not much to say. He has to be credited with managing that at the very least, not intellectually pushing it. I do think that we have an enormous opportunity there to shape something completely new, proposal for Arlington, how green space, public space interacts with residential and commercial space, mixed-use space. So the earlier we get to a point where we define, and you help us on this, we define how this green river should be stacked, how they should be looking like, whether we can do a pilot and see, what the real thing looks like, etc. The earlier the better. I am here to accelerate that. We talked about schools, we talked about libraries, very important topic. I guess we will talk about that today, about the very big park that we have here, the Virginia Highlands Park. We talk about the big conversation about the performance art space and the lack of a cultural center for a very big set of neighborhoods that is growing around the corridor. And I am inviting you already in this meeting to prepare for this biennial report, which I want to invite you to present at the main board meeting, so that we remind our board and our county leadership that a lot is cooking here, and that we have a responsibility to get it right. So thank you for having me. I'm all ears. I know I'm not going to be disappointed, and I am really eager to listen to your proceeding.
Great, thank you. Matt, can we check to see make sure we know who's online? Hey, can we do a voice check? Are you Eric, Corey, Jill, Ian? Can you hear us okay? Somebody can go off mute for a sec if you like. Okay, all right, thanks, Joe. Okay, so let's go into the development update. This is a kind of a standard update that Matt gives each quarter, and that'll ground us on where things stand. Hi, Corey. Okay, stop.
It'll take over.
Alright. So,
Put it on,
most of
on
you.
you.
Sean, excellent.
There it is.
Alright, so, what I wanted to do is make sure we introduce this, to some of the new members or, folks who haven't seen this in a while. When we try to meet, there's a kind of a standard presentation, very brief, just a snapshot of where we are development wise, status of different applications. And that helps kind of just make it easier to track progress, on the different development activity that's happening. This presentation tries to at least capture the major site plan activity. I'm happy to answer questions about some of the other minor applications that are happening or non-site plan activity that still might involve this area, which I'll touch on in a brief second. But the way we try to group these to make it just simpler and more consistent because of how they might show up online is to utilize our interesting it's showing it that way, but we try to group it in three different categories. Kind of the conceptual stage where we're just kind of informally meeting with applicants, the preliminary stage where something has been submitted but only staff are reviewing it, the technical requirements, and then the more public facing or what we call final site plan stage, which at that point you've probably seen plans posted online, public meeting schedule. So depending on where they are in that cycle, it's how we're trying to categorize the applications in addition to those that were approved. So what we are usually starting with is so much better on my screen. It looks okay. Maybe it's just this one. What we try to capture is all the approved site plans that have happened. You can see here, at least the ones that are online, where the Amazon applications are, and kind of the geographic distribution, which is tracked chronologically across both Pentagon City and Crystal City. So it's just something that, this list continues to grow as more and more of these projects finish their review process. So this list is very consistent with, I think, our last presentation in December. Where things continue to update are our active applications. Color really makes all the difference here.
Yeah, it's missing the color.
Yeah, so 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, which are sprinkled throughout here, include, I'll just go by them. River House application, the Pentagon Center Base Development Site Plan, which is right here. 2525 Crystal Drive, which is down here by the Airport Access Road. 12th Street Landing, which is the Brookfields Base Development Site Plan. And then finally, the Crystal Plaza Apartments, which is right here, number 20, that was just recently accepted. But it's not having any public meetings. So again, now we're starting to look at beyond the approvals, what's currently under review, public facing, where different committee meetings are being scheduled. And then finally, on the upcoming applications, we are tracking, see here, number 21, that's the 1800 Bell Street. It's recently filed, but not yet accepted. So until that happens, it's going to continue to just be monitored and tracked. And as we look through all of those, we are tracking different status of them. So the two phase development site plans, Pentagon Center and both Brookfield, they've completed their long range planning committee meetings. So now we're beginning to target their level of completion. If they address all the comments, could they start to go to the planning commission and county board? So between May, June, July, we're going to be tracking both of those. So we're just saying spring for now. 25 did have their first site plan review committee meeting. Look at the schedule, the second one sometime in the spring. Depending on how that conversation goes, this one could be ready for planning commission and county board as early as the summer. The remaining projects are much further behind. River House continues to rework a substantial level of comments, both from staff, but also from the 3 LRPC meetings we had in the fall. And just a massive site, a lot of drawings to be updated. But once that is submitted, staff has a chance to review, we'll have a better opportunity to kind of figure out which SPRC dates they can target this summer. So that's going to take us well into the second half of the year. In Crystal Plaza Apartments, now that it has been accepted, our first step, much like it was with 25, is to begin the review with the long-range planning committee meeting, because that does require a block plan review before we can get into the site plan review process. So we'll be looking at dates and share those as they're made available. So that is the snapshot of major site plan activity. We are also continuing to track progress on Crystal Houses. I understand that's a frustrating process for many. Staff are included in that as well, but their next phase, which is looking at the townhomes fronting, I believe, Burn Street. There's like 2 sticks there, the lowest density portion of the property. Those are going to be the next ones that will be reviewed. And that process will take us well to the fall. So we're not there yet. We're still looking at 6 fronting on each street. So again, following the chronological order that they've laid out for us when they first came in. And then the other item that probably might be of note is the Melwood application, which is the special love study that we're looking at on 23rd Street. That one was going to go to the planning commission and county board this month, but to help avoid conflict with the Laurel Highlands Civic Association meeting, we're going to push it back to May. Hopefully that will resolve some of the scheduled conflicts there. Planning commission can only meet on one night, and it happens to be the Civic Association. So that's everything I had. Happy to take any questions.
A few folks have characterized the upcoming year as kind of like a slow year. You guys feel that things are slowing down, or there's pause?
Did you say upcoming year 2024?
24 into 25. After this pile, after this set of SPRC.
Yeah, I think 1800 Hill is the last, I think, element that we will be obligated to bring through for entitlements. There isn't anything else on the horizon other than, I think, a final phase of coastal houses. So in terms of the site plan review committee level of work, I think that is a fairly brief horizon that we're going to start to see a slowdown summer. And we're not really seeing too much activity beyond the entitlements for a lot of these projects. I'm just waiting for conditions.
Is that due to the economy? The way some other site approved plans haven't gone forward? That's neat for you.
All of that. Imagine.
Jay, does that feel kind of how you guys see it?
I think all of the above. Seems a lot of factors, but, we want to be ready when the market turns to resume.
Any other questions on this? You figure out how to mute these guys. Or edit so that they can unmute. Apparently when they unmute.
Well, you go into more, you go into settings for the meeting.
Yeah, I think for some reason the microphone was.
You down unmute.
Unmute?
Yes.
Oh, they can hear you again?
No, we can't
They
hear
can't
them.
speak. Yeah,
I think I'm the organizer, let me do it. So for everybody joining online, I think you should be able to see your camera and microphone. Sorry.
Hey, Jill, do you want to just try to use your mic for a second?
Okay, yes. Can you guys
All
hear me?
right.
Oh,
Okay, great.
I have a question, Mike, not about development, but about local street construction. Is that kind of on topic of this?
Yeah, sure.
I just wonder, Matt, if you know anything about the various, there's a lot of street construction projects going on right now, particularly at 15th and Fern. We've yet again come to a situation where it is impossible to cross those streets without going out into the street. But also like, 12th Street is shut down due to the place. I don't know if there's a sense of the timeline for the various sidewalk projects that have made some pedestrian travel in our area kind of challenging.
There is a schedule. I can reach out to the 3 or 4 folks who are, I think, most closely following that. And I think it go beyond the updates we typically see transportation staff provide at the quarterly meeting that the bid hosts transportation. So it has milestones, but I think we can target a specific geography and emphasize for sidewalks, access across, intersections. You can probably drill down a little bit deeper and kind of give us a sequencing. What's happening when certain phases might end. So if you can email me the request, and highlight the geography you want to focus on, that'd be very helpful. I can make sure that.
I think there's supposed to be some public meetings coming up as well. The last time I heard that from the bid transportation, it was like by the summer, there would be a whole series of them.
This would be on just the sign for future projects or the.
No, on the DES was supposed to do public meetings on various things that are.
We are getting closer to the spring, summer period where usually communication staff working with DES will have the idea of should we put another one of those open houses where everybody who is working on those things is made available, like, and answer questions. And sometimes that allows for a better opportunity to just kind of connect the dots and raise it, but.
Yeah, for example, I asked Claudia Pores because she was posting on nextdoor.com, but she wasn't sending it to the civic associations. So I just asked her if she would please start sending us the transportation posts. So there are 3 upcoming that she's just starting to talk about. But I think something happened, something dropped off in their communications with us. Where they were very, very good for a couple of years, and then things are a little dicey.
And when it was good, is there a staff person involved or?
Yeah, what's his name? Nate Graham.
Yeah.
He's still there.
Okay, so what do we want to do here? Do we want to wait for an open house? Or?
No, I think if you can email me, Ben, I can at least address that, and then I'm sure just a bad time before the open house.
Okay. Right, great. Okay, so let's move to the next topic, which is the some feedback on the priorities letter that we sent to the county manager's office late December last year. Let's switch back to my screen.
Figured it out. Go back to trying to share. And click desktop. And then click allow to share screen. And then there's another button that will be here.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
There you go.
There we go. And then it's.
And then it still triggers it because it's reading it quick enough, but yeah, you're good.
Okay, great.
Wrong one. Wrong one, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so,
Whoa.
yeah, so this is kind of tiny. I emailed it to the members, I guess about a month and a half ago, and I just wanted to follow up. So this is the feedback from the county manager's office. And at the time, the arena was hot and heavy, and that was a lot of the conversation. And as you can see, Arlington's principal concern was the transportation and ensuring that everything worked. But I think one of the things that when we talk about the biennial report a little later, I'd really be interested in the feedback, and you don't have to give it tonight. We can start it tonight. We can send it through emails. We start to develop this draft, but kind of what did we pull away from the arena in terms of things that that Crystal and Pentagon City ought to start thinking about with regard to North Alexandria. As Taka said, they aren't going to plant a forest where the arena was going to go. There'll be 12 million square feet of development there eventually. And we started to have some good conversations about connectivity in terms of, the pedestrian ways. But Mark Schwartz suggested extending the green ribbon down to North Alexandria, for example. And some of the things that we might want to think about in terms of the levels of communications we have with them. Crystal City set up some communications with the Delray Civic Association, said it. So there's a whole bunch of different levels that we can think about spending little time communicating with North Alexandria in terms of how we work together going forward. So I'll be interested in any feedback folks have as we think through this. Go ahead. Oh, he does.
Just kind of somewhat related, at the Route 1 meeting, it was interest expressed at extending the 25-mile-an-hour limit all the way down Route 1, as opposed to when it leaves our area, it goes back up to 30 or 35, and then when it gets to Alexandria, it goes back down to 25. And so I think the discussion was that Arlington County to request DOT to look at 25 miles an hour all the way down to the Alexandria line.
We did for the bridge.
You did do, okay.
That's a recommendation.
Yes, I can send it to you. Right,
Yeah.
right, there's this area between 23rd and basically for my run that goes back up, in part because of 233. And
Right.
there was a lot of talk about how the traffic comes down from the ramps, and for some reason on the west side, you needed a higher speed, which made nothing.
No.
But no one actually goes 25, so. That's a whole other issue.
Separate issues, but you can like bring the temperature down.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about, basically, if there's going to be more development down in the northern part of Potomac Yards, it's going to be, whether it's residential or some combination of residential office or tech expands beyond where they are now. There's going to be people getting there by metro and bus, but there are going to be people driving as well. So maybe getting the speeds down is part of just getting everybody used to.
Like training wheels.
Yeah.
And Dan from was agreeable to it, but he said they needed the county manager to push for it.
Okay,
We pushed the county manager.
all right. So is that a follow-up?
I suppose. I mean, the letter didn't went out fairly recently.
Okay.
There was an article that just came out that I couldn't open that maybe Jay can mention, that JVG has some ideas for that area down there as what it might be. Can you just say what the
Just
general,
all that article from this
I
afternoon.
couldn't open it, so.
Like any good, the headline was more, there wasn't much to it, to be honest. The article was our CEO saying, yeah, we think the site is because of the arena, there's a lot of eyes on it and there's gonna be something. It was probably more towards our investors, frankly, than the rest of the world, but there wasn't any great revelations in the article.
Because anything that goes in there, transportation is the key for us, so.
Mike, I wonder if it would be interesting to consider a joint meeting between this group and then maybe a couple, I don't know what the appropriate bodies would be at Alexandria, but like maybe, now that we're at the stage, for this kind of joint, and right, the national landing concept kind of does extend down into that area, but, I think it was like, we haven't quite talked a lot about, right, the sector plan processes, Bristol City, Pentagon City, but not the interconnectedness. And certainly, I think some of the anxiety around the arena, I think, was due to maybe the lack of those conversations and the lack of understanding. I wonder if maybe it would be even helpful for some of the property owners to kind of get a sense of, where joint priorities are and kind of intersecting things like transportation, but potentially kind of other.
Great, Rob Mandel wasn't able to make it tonight, but I think they have, the bid has some thoughts in that area. The National Landing moniker goes down there, and so I think there's some thoughts on that. I'll follow up with them and maybe we'll pick it up at the next meeting.
There's a Potomac Yard Design Advisory Committee in Alexandria
No,
that be a good step for a joint.
okay, so I'll just summarize the rest of these quickly. The school, I think most folks are aware APS is not in construction mode at this point. They're looking at rehabbing some schools and moving some boundaries. So that's something that Livability Group has actually Kateri Garcia, you may know, she's the president of Crystal City Civic Association.
No, Arlington Ridge.
Or sorry, Arlington Ridge. But she is kind of leading a schools group. She's involved in the facilities, Facilities Advisory Commission, and is following up on what the schools are doing. So regarding getting a school in this area, that's something that Kerry's going to be chasing down. But right now, it doesn't look like they have school construction in there. That said, this doesn't have any holdup on any of the county processes related to the parks or the county properties adjacent to the parks. Regarding this facility, community center, there's no plan for investment in the new facilities right now. It's kind of 4 to 5 years out. That means that we're kind of in that range where it might be worth the communities asking for this area, this facility to be kind of upgraded a bit. If we're 4 to 5 years from getting a bond issued, we're 10 to 15 years from getting a community center. So what you're looking at is what we're going to have for a while. So the communities might want to think about that. Okay, the Virginia Highlands Park, the park outside us, that goes into a major planning process in the year 2028. Open space, there was, this is Crystal City in particular. Mark Schwartz, the county manager, did feel that it was worth checking the TIF to see what kinds of funds were in there. I don't know, were you able to get any information on that? Any responses? Okay, so that he thought there might be a prospect of speeding some of that up a little bit in terms of the open space provisioning. Okay, then the last two, which we will talk about a bit tonight, Green Ribbon. As I said, Mark was very interested in the idea of extending the Green Ribbon and hence the pedestrian connectivity down into the Potomac Yard area. So that might be a conversation we could start to, something we could start to socialize with folks in Alexandria. And then the Crystal City Library, I think most of you might have read in Arlington now, there's been a change in how that the arrangement JBG and the county have. There's now just going to be essentially a lump sum payment made, and the county has asked the community to look for some alternative locations for a library. And Carol's prepared a presentation which we'll go over tonight. We have had that first conversation with the library leadership, that's Diane Kresh, to get that process kicked off. Okay. Okay, so that's the response to the priorities letter. Now that impacts to some degree the budgeting cycle for this year. Probably the thing that's most impacted, I think, is there open space planned in the budget for this year for Crystal City? Is there any park
No,
dollars?
no, the first thing is the metro market, when the, new entrance is complete.
Right,
But I think the planning is supposed to start, isn't it, Jay? I think, but there won't be anything done until the construction is finished. So we're looking at 2026.
Based on my conversations with Marco at the Parks Department, they expect to have a initial public outreach soliciting input for the design of Metro Market Square sometime this summer.
Yeah.
And they, frankly, they couldn't give us a date on when they hope to begin construction. We want to know from the perspective of the east entrance. Our assumption with the east entrance projects, they're going to start after we finish. So it's in spring of 27. Now Marco is holding out hope that they can start before then, which would be great, but our assumption is 2027 construction start.
And we're talking about a big amount of money from JBG, from the Americana for Metro Market, Plaza, I would say that wrong. And 300, I think it's like 6.5 million, I think, and it's 300,000 for Center Park.
okay. Let's move to the next discussion then. And so what we'll talk about tonight is the green ribbon. And what we'll do is I'll walk through the history of the green ribbon a bit because we have some new members. And then we'll work over to the request that this council made, which was to connect the green ribbon in Pentagon City with the Crystal City pedestrian network, and to take another turn on the design standards for the green ribbon itself. Okay, so the green ribbon came out of the Livability 22202 action plan. We worked with the county on that. There was some workshopping done, and eventually there was a very rough map made of some proposed routes that could allow the community to move from across the entire 22202 area, dedicated pedestrian routes. And that was a key request of the community. When we brought the community together, did some workshops, really wanted to build community, and you were looking for the manifestations of how do what's a physical built environment look like if you want to build community. And one of the big things was we'd like to be able to walk to see one another. And Arthur Fox famously said that he wanted to visit Judy. Arthur lives on the far side of the Arlington Bridge. And so, and we didn't really have a good way to walk there. So, and it also got at the porosity or the lack of porosity of some of these old super block structures. If you walk around here, you often have several blocks of built environment where normally it's you're cutting across private property to go through the block. So, all right. So, green ribbon is actually codified in the Pentagon City sector plan here, and there's some connectivity beyond Pentagon City that's being proposed. One is the connection to the Mount Vernon Trail through the Columbia Island connection, which is coming online fairly soon. Connections to Roche's Run via the water park, and potentially via an access tunnel on 2525 Crystal Drive. And then long ago, and there was at one point a pedestrian bridge concept across 4 Mile Run that would connect the end of East Street to Commonwealth Avenue. And I put that on there. Rob Mandel mentioned this because he said, if we're thinking about connecting to Alexandria, we gotta not forget that concept is out there.
There's plans for it.
Yeah,
They've already been developed.
yeah, and,
If they never got built, it would be wonderful.
right, it's a good
It
reminder.
goes right to Commonwealth Avenue.
Mhm. Yeah.
Perfect connection.
Yeah, so it's a good reminder. for
It's in the
Rob.
bike element.
So, okay, and then there's some time sensitivity on the design, you know, we have, the development communities really supportive of the green ribbon, and it is a mixed private, public, enterprise that we're doing. But if we want to get some more design guidance out to them in terms of some of the, biophilic and ecologically sustainable elements that we'd like to think about, and to decide what that common look and feel is, so that, you know, how do you, you know, the wayfinding, how do you know you're on the green ribbon as you walk through the area? These are the kinds of things that we'd like to address now. Okay, so because we're CPCC, every conversation we have goes back to, okay, what's in the plan? Because the plan really largely drives our charter. So the Pentagon City Sector Plan shows on the left, you see the green ribbon, and you see these arrows, and this is 12th Street, and then there's another arrow around here, around 15th, and another arrow at 18th. And then if you look at the Crystal City Sector Plan, you see another set of arrows, I mean, west, 12th Street, 15th Street, 18th Street, and actually Army Navy Drive, which is actually this connection here. So at its most basic, the request that we have on the table is take these two diagrams and connect them. So we very much need the county to kind of formally do that connection so that we can get, you know, establish that network and get that, the green ribbon formally connected across all of 2222. So, Matt, we talked about this. What's your sense of how hard this is to do? I mean, it looks like PowerPoint, but I'm sure it's more than that, but.
The only difficulty, I think, is in the required coordination between three different departments, where in order to complete that assignment, you have to figure out how to make some compromises, public right of way, where transportation staff and standards generally take priority. In the limited space we have, particularly where redevelopment might not happen anytime near future, how do you identify some space adequate enough to meet what we thought we were going to get? So a lot of these east-west cross sections, they're going to be relying on some open streets. So having folks from each of the three different departments, parks, transportation, and planning, you know, that's something if we start to strategize now, maybe we have a shot at asking for next year when the work plan gets developed. But it is something that has to be elevated and then compared against other priorities, which happens every year, sometimes twice a year. So that's, I think, the real challenge, is just making sure the right people in the room, there's resources available for three different departments. Because planning, even if we have, you know, 5 people on this, we can't do it just in-house.
Right, right.
Just a piece of history, several years ago, we suggested a sustainability position within the county. I don't know if you remember this, Matt, or not. The idea was we'd do exactly what you're talking about. It would coordinate across the departments on particular issues. It never went anywhere, and with the budget, it won't go anywhere, but it obviously is something that's.
This was a countywide or just?
Yeah, it was, we sent it, I can't remember if it was Livability or whether, I think it was Livability sent it several years ago.
Okay.
The concept was to create, because there are other places in the country that have done this. They have coordinators who coordinate on the different issues, and it was specifically called sustainability position.
There's
But
a-
I'll see if I can dig it up and send it to you.
And I want to muddy the waters, but I've seen a gentleman that was hired the last year, I think within the manager's office, not to dig up exactly his title. He's most closely associated with DES. And I thought it had some sustainability, green building implications, like that was purpose behind the position.
I can muddy the waters.
Get away with it.
Oh, wait.
So, the
So this was having a sustainability and climate response resiliency coordinating function embedded in the county manager's office was a request and an advocacy item for quite some time. And finally, the county board decided 2 years last year to actually fund this position and force the creation of that.
That's amazing. We know nothing about it.
Yeah,
Climate
and that's
policy
actually,
officer.
that's Bill Egger.
Yeah.
So he is now, I have to say that this hasn't worked very well because we didn't think through the entire organigram and through to what this, the charge for this office specifically. So we keep that. This budget will keep the function. It will still be the cabinet of Parks Boards. But we expect more from a climate response and sustainability coordinator. Honestly, there is a ton of things that are right now ongoing. And one of the criticisms, and I think, really founded criticisms is that we don't complete the jobs that we started. We have a lot of plans and deliverables that we are leading with some delay or not according to the initial plans. So we are really interested in accelerating that and adding capacity, both on the side of air, etc. One of the biggest changes that we will see this year is that air, the Arlington energy will now move from the Department of Environmental Services all together under the county manager. So the entire our entire environment and climate change crew will be closer to the county board, definitely closer to the county manager. This is one of the lessons that we got from 1 year and a half of working with a coordinator. Or, offline, we can talk more about that. The green ribbon centers, the design of these hasn't been really the focus of work. We said a couple of things about these, we planned the vision, but the follow-up is still better. If I'm not wrong.
I was gonna say, it sounds like he is more focused in climate, whereas we'd be looking at someone who can more so interact. and
Correct, but
coordinate.
if we talk about green ribbons and intersection, we are talking actually about that.
We are always talking about climate, but it seems like you'd be looking more for like a central PMO, project management organization that can.
Yeah.
Or orchestrate between.
Yeah, and this is something that we expected to grow organically into the charge of the deliverables of this office, and it hasn't happened. So therefore, we are now reacting to that by not only having one coordinator, and it was also a second position planned for this as a subordinate position to that, but we are taking the entirety of air. And we're building that the county manager's portfolio, direct oversight. That brings us this is a very unusual measure that responds to our sense of urgency and our sense of focus.
So, Matt, following up on this a bit, is this a couple of months of work? Because I'm worried that we're losing a year. And by the time we get this work done, it'll be cushion. We didn't get it in place in time for.
Projects that are, right.
Yeah, to understand, have some certainty about where the green ribbon was going.
So are we trying to kind of establish where our desire lines in Crystal City for a green ribbon type of infrastructure should be built. So if we lay down the desire lines like we did livability, but extend that into Crystal City, that starts to establish where we would like to see these connections.
That's a good point, Jeff. So you're saying we could,
We can, and I think that's an easier ask because,
Yeah.
all these, we're gonna have to wait for either redevelopment or for the county to actually go back and put in new county infrastructure in those areas
Right.
before it gets built out.
Right.
And as far as the design guidelines, I went and took a look at the River House, the Bradley site design, and a lot of kind of the detailed specifications of the path width and the planting widths and the types of things that were gonna be planted. That is all gonna be so site specific that I think we should not try to chase down specific details because there are just too many different environments. I think we should deal with that, starting at LRPC and continuing into SPRC. That's kind of my thought on it. There's 149 mentions of green ribbon in the center plan. And actually, when you start to read through all of those entries, you realize, oh, there's actually a lot of information here. It's spread out everywhere. The appendix is very thin as far as it's got these kind of little planter things that are, you look at the plan, there's no specifications. I'm thinking that's right, and maybe that should be right, because we don't want to over specify. And in fact, the ribbon is going to be, can be very generous if the land allows it, and it's going to be maybe a little tighter where there's not as large a right of way. And it's two things. We like to have a linear park that's biophilic, but it's also transportation infrastructure. So it's doing two things, and so it's always going to be a trade-off.
I think the issue is that we have, Crystal City has a sector plan, some minimal sort of guideline, and nothing like what the newer plan is.
Yeah.
So at the very least, and it's substantially built out, everything that's online, it's coming, it's approved, installed, everything else is predicated on, it's the built environment reinvented.
Right.
So I think I understand the value of trying to make the connections, but I think that absent of a new plan, which of course ever. The most we can do is come up with guidelines, I think, that are similar to what we have in Pentagon City.
Yeah.
And say, do the best you can
Yeah.
to squeeze this in.
Yeah.
And as we're already arguing at every opportunity for more, wider and greener. And why do we have a green space that has spikes running through it and that kind of thing? So those issues aren't going to go away, but at least we could reference the guidelines that do exist, knowing that in Crystal City, we have fewer opportunities to create.
We have two site plans or close to site plans that have put forward green ribbon signs. The River House is probably the most extensive and has quite a variety of areas it's going to traverse. And 12th Street Landing is also getting to that area as well. And I mean, I think that we're in kind of a discovery phase of let's try to get the design as good as we can, achieve what we want. So that means we really have to get as many community eyeballs that are interested in this issue looking at this and allow enough time for a discussion to take place.
I think the pushback I have is about the idea of, everything's going to be site by site is, and I think we've come to this a little bit with 12th Street Landing already, is like, is it meeting, the spirit, is it meeting the goals of and without a little more specificity, it's hard to tell. I mean, it's important to give developers flexibility. I mean, to me, it's a big kind of question about what is the green, like, is the green ribbon an expressive concept that we want to have tree lined and park lined linear parks in this area, or is it a branded piece of Pentagon and hopefully Crystal City that people would come here for, that has a cohesive, I mean, I didn't make it, I said during the sector planning process, like, we really need, I guess they didn't get to that level of detail, like a common branding element across of it. So that when you start in Arlington Ridge, you walk down it, you feel like not just, hey, I'm walking down some streets and some are more parks and some aren't, that instead that there's a common element, whether it's interconnected art, interconnected branding, types of designs, and it doesn't have to be a lot, right? Again, we don't want to tell, the Brookfield and River House folks that like, hey, it needs to be exactly this way, and but more like, are there some common elements across of it that can really create that sense of a branded space that I think is really important, especially because the green ribbon really was the marquee part of the Pentagon city sector plan. This is really how staff sold it. This is what the consultants were really focused on. It appears so many times, and I think we do deserve, and the neighborhood deserves, and I think we benefit, everyone benefits by having more than just areas that are lined, maybe a little bit more foliage heavy, but instead is something more, something clear that you are there.
Yeah, actually, I'll move through these quickly and then I'll come to the slide okay, drive this. So Crystal City, lots happened since, but if you look back at this old plan, it's pretty good, look, there's Roach's Run. It's got the Short Bridge connection, it's got Potomac Yard, it's got Long Bridge. What's happened since then is we've got the CC to DCA connection being formed, we've got the Columbia Island connection, and we've got this proposed loop for Roach's Run. Then you go 12 years later, you see the Pentagon City has got its connectivity, specifically calls out this extension of Long Bridge Park. So Jeff, I think that might be something that I think you were working toward. Why don't we just produce our best cut at how we think that connection might look, and take a cut at a couple other ones. So that connectivity is emphasized even further in the Pentagon City sector plan. Okay. I'll go over the Roach's Run. I think just for folks that haven't seen this, the livability picked up on JBG's suggestion that said, hey, we've got a little tunnel down here. If you look in the lower right of this graphic, you can actually get over under the railroad tracks. And they had a couple of parcels of property, a bunch of National Park Service land. And what could you do if you had this linear swath of forest right beside a linear city? And it could be pretty cool. And what the open space workshop did was it kind of scoped out a potential loop that would, kind of go up along the west edge of the parkway. And then you could actually kind of just dash up into Long Ridge Park as you went after you came through Long Ridge. Carol's followed up on this a couple of times with the National Park Service. I think they answered the phone, but that's it.
Well, they specifically said that their plan for Roach's Run had gone back to zero because since the new supervisor came in, he said he was doing nothing. He said the only way this will move forward is if Arlington County pushes for it. And Libby Garvey, at several points, we talked to her about it, Matakis, but that's the only way anything will happen there with the Roach's Run itself. But the connection, we're talking about the path, is really a development issue coming out of the JBG idea that we thought was wonderful.
I mean, that would be a forested walk next to the city. And I really think that is such an interesting concept of being able to say, I need to get away from this stuff and just go through a walk in the woods, and you could actually do that. The trains would be running by, but
Yeah, well, the question to Jay, because Jay always said that the CC to DCA, that there might be this shift in of the property that you own by Roach's Run. Did anything ever come of that?
Short answer is no. Arlington County explored the possibility of including basically land in Roach's Run as a part of the deal with the Park Service for CCDCA, and ultimately decided against it. that they cut a different deal with the Park Service that involves funding for maintenance of the trail, which is also a good thing. But ultimately, the county didn't make that deal. I do agree with the Park Service's input that basically the only way that the public, gonna create a public park space in Rochers Run is if Arlington County pushes it. I'd encourage this group to keep that as a priority. I think it's achievable, and I've said many times that JBG owns, I don't know, 3 to 5 acres at the base of Rochers Run that we can't do anything with. We'll be interested in using that to facilitate some type of parkland, basically at the base near the water park trail. As it relates to the linear trail that would connect that site all the way down towards the 2525 site, that right of way is, it's technically owned by JBG, but it is controlled by CSX and the Commonwealth of Virginia. We looked at it as a part of the 2525 development. There's not enough right of way that we control to make it happen. All that is exacerbated with the planned fourth track project, which expands the right of way. So
That can happen.
if you're looking at these two concepts, my input would be the more achievable one is a loop around the body of water at Rochers Run rather than the linear trail along the tracks.
Okay,
And that's at the north end.
Correct.
yeah, okay.
Rob Mandel's here because
Yeah.
Roaches, and he's also been working on the name, which is a problem, both because Roach is that pleasant and the Roach family was known for shooting Union soldiers.
Yeah.
More, so there's a double reason to hopefully we can get a name change along with this.
The conversation was to access Rochers from Bridge Park or CPCC, both, right?
Yes.
We have basically two access points.
Yeah, and we actually walked it, so it's not just on the railroad track. There is, Mike knows this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Jay makes a good point that you don't have to get all of this, or you don't have to get it all at once. You could get pieces of it and then, move from there. I think something really compelling to the Park Service is Rochers Run is not very accessible. You gotta drive there and you gotta be in the southbound lane of the limited access route.
So all the Uber drivers are taking the
Yeah,
parking lot.
Parking lot, so I think there's, something good for all the stakeholders here, but boy, it's gonna take a master class and that's, definitely why we need to talk to Rob.
I would imagine a high priority would be the name change.
Yeah.
Just in comical aside, I wouldn't take my 3-year-old there. She would keep making fun of it.
Okay, so, let's go back to the design standards. As Jeff said, there's significant, guidance in the Pentagon City Sector Plan. It covers, the path, the branding, the wayfinding, the planting zone, canopy. And it does mention native plants, but it's a pretty small print. But there is a significant guidance there. I think and I've had a lot of conversations with you, but in your comments are very aligned, which is, there's definitely a desire to get the branding and the wayfinding in place. So if you're on the green ribbon, you don't feel like you're just on a sidewalk.
I would say it's gonna take a long time to build the network out. It's gonna come in segment by segment. So the branding, there's that woodland walk section kind of above the River House parcel. It's gonna come down, but I don't know how long it's gonna take for that to really connect into the other parts of the green ribbon. And so you're gonna end up with a point where you're just back on county-owned sidewalks. And so I agree that it would be nice to have a uniform experience of moving through the community. That's not really going to occur until we get way down the road.
Okay.
Just flagging Corey on the line is a question.
Oh, okay. Great, Cora,
Hey,
give you the,
Hey.
oh, go ahead.
yeah, so I have been listening to all your comments, and I also see that there are two pieces to this, this endeavor. One is the hardscape and the coordinating with the property owners on where the pathway can be, and the other one is the design elements. And I think that in addition to the idea of branding, I think that people should be able to see and feel where that they're on the green ribbon by the look of the greenery, authentic greenery, and also that it's going to suddenly be a little bit shadier and quieter maybe, and more peaceful. And so it would be my priority to work into the design standards that not only do you have signs telling you that you're on the green ribbon, but you can see it and feel it. And if in order for it to be a destination, you should be able to see it from a Google map, from a satellite. You should be able to see a green sort of a green little ribbon. And although I always like to compare it to the High Line in New York, the High Line in New York had a dedicated area that was not in competition with buildings on the ground, especially buildings that are already in place. And I see that as being one of the biggest challenges, of course, is how built out Crystal City is, and fitting this in there. But what I would like to see is that we get a community group together to look at the area and make sure that the path links together places that people want to go, and then coordinate with the owners, the county and the property owners, about how we can get that pathway laid down with the property rights, and then make sure it's taking people to the things that they want to get to, the shopping areas, the residential areas, the transportation areas, and the community services like the Crystal Park and library, etc. So in addition to the biophilic entities, which should be obvious when one is on it, and you should be able to look forward ahead of you and see where it would continue, it also needs to take us to places where we actually want to go. So that I would like to get a community group together to look at that and make sure that the design actually meets the needs and desires of the people who are going to be using it.
Good. Yeah, thanks, Corey. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the idea of green ribbons. I support them. I'm looking forward to this wonderful, rich pedestrian environment and also all this great greenery and peaceful places. So this is great. My concern is that we currently have not fully developed plans in Crystal City right now that are planning to put a green ribbon on a street rather than as a separate linear park. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, and I'm not sure how to do that, and I'm not sure that's something we should really be fighting. But there's one on River House that's going to be on new part of Kent Street, and for Kimco, they're talking about it on part of 13th Street. And I think we need to deal with that.
Yeah, so
And the time is
Yeah.
now.
if I could, I want to share what Taylor Lodge had a suggestion, and I think it fits in with the conversation. One was the ideal manifestation of the green ribbons is different as you go through. The best thing in one place is different from the best thing somewhere else. And I think some of the anxiety we have is that we want to see this kicked off really well. Like we want the first few segments of the green ribbon to be really high quality, because if they are, process will drive itself from there, to some degree, right? And we just want to make sure those first ones will be really good. So I think we are, some of what we could address is by looking for a couple opportunities that with some willing partners to kind of bird dog, the first few, make sure that they look really good and we understand what they, how they meet the common need of the green ribbon concept, but excelling in, for their area. Because I think as you're saying, Pam, some of the green ribbon is just gonna run along the road, or it's gonna have to be set up to accommodate, a whole bunch of people coming out of Metro, making their way to HQ2.
Like Main Street.
And if we've got, some planter boxes that are too close, it's not gonna be good. So, but go ahead, Jeff.
So something else is been on my mind because I've been going through that park, which is a public space that I really love. I love the openness of it. I love the way the buildings and sky is. I love kind of the forest that's there. But there are some areas where the plants have just failed. There is just much too much sad mulch sitting there. And what it brought back to me is it states actually in the sector plan that there's a maintenance requirement for the green ribbon as well. But I think what we'll need to do is as this is built out is go back after at least 1 or 2 years, do an assessment and find out, well, we thought this was going to work and it's not working, and we need to be able to go back and revisit and adjust. And also take what we learn on our early failures, because I understand that gardeners fail a lot before they succeed. So that ought to be part of our plan as well, is how do we go back and assess how we're doing? And does the county, do we need to have kind of a formal plan to say, okay, we're going to come back in 2 years, we're going to see these plants worked, these ones are struggling, we need to take these conditions into account when we go forward. I'll just say that because, and I guess maybe this is something we should bring up with Amazon at Met Park, but I took a bunch of photos.
Well, I can tell you part of that is the horticulturists or the ones in Seattle. So they took Seattle and brought it to Virginia and it didn't work. They have now got a horticulturist here.
Okay.
I've been talking to them on the native plant
They
side
did
of the
some
whole thing.
replanting last week.
And they are doing some replanting. They're rethinking the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's, I think, what happened. It was the Seattle base
Yeah.
that didn't work here.
But-
Mike, maybe to push things along a little
Yeah.
bit, maybe can I make a suggestion? And Jeff's gonna hate me. But I think we ought to have the CPCC should get a little group together to start working on these issues very specifically now.
Yes.
If Jeff were willing to lead it, he's got so much knowledge on the whole thing. And he's been involved in this since the very beginning when we had the first open space workshop. I would just recommend that, coordinating a small group. And Corey just said she'd like to join in.
Yeah, I was about to make that suggestion.
I do have a question.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
My
Looking
first,
at the time.
do we have a preset design already existing, or is it still in conceptual mode?
It's, River House is probably the furthest along.
Okay,
Well, there's River House submitted a bunch of 4.1 design documents. And in there, you can see various cross sections and parts of the green ribbon that they proposed. But those drawings are being revised based on the LRPC, so they'll be coming out again. And I assume at some point Brookfield will be doing 4.1 documents for their section as well.
okay.
So this would be great. Corey's a master gardener, and she knows a lot about the ecological and sustainability aspects. So I think this would be a really good opportunity.
And Natasha.
And
Okay.
yeah, we could, go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, Mike, I'm not a master gardener. I'm a tree steward.
Oh,
but
sorry.
Same kind of a,
Same.
same focus.
Okay.
But I have to leave in a few minutes. I'm at my mom's house and I have to go to my sister's house. And the thing that I was just now wanting to add is that probably River House is the most advanced right now because they have landscape architects who have done preliminary designs for the landscape. And probably that group will be responsible for the ongoing upkeep. And that made me realize that each segment of this will have a different owner, and will each owner or city, if it's a public street, or the county, will they be responsible for the ongoing upkeep of the area? So that's something we want to look at is for each segment, who would be the responsible party for
Yep.
planting, and upkeep. So that I don't have a concept of myself at all. Who's paying for it? And who lays down the hardscape and the plant matter. So that's something I would like to tackle in the group and figure out who how we coordinate those things.
Okay, so, the potential next steps that we had, and we can modify this, but I think, the first ask was to work, to try to get this connection into the, underway by the county. I think, Jeff, you make a great point. Let's try this pump and, make some recommendations on the connection. That'll be enough for us to at least start that ball moving forward. The other one the next item would be kind of just what you guys are talking about. Let's get the small group together and start to look at some of these segments and start to come up with a plan. One thing that I think we should do is do an outreach to the Forestry and Natural Resources Commission. In the time since the Pentagon City Sector Plan was published, the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan was put out. It's got a lot of really great information in it. And they'll be a good set of resources for us. So with that, it is, yeah.
One thing that we haven't talked about, which is the existing identified sections of the Green Ribbon, which are going to depend on county development. So I'm specifically thinking along Hayes, that we're not going to see major redevelopment on the mall anytime soon, as well as along 15th. That presumably is going to require some sort of CIP funding or something like that. So I think holding the county responsible for the portions of the Green Ribbon that are unlikely going to depend on developer, these development specifically could have development contributions benefits that help fund it, but I think that's going to be an important part of the in addition to the guidelines.
And it would be interesting for me. It just happened when I did the borough group. The highlight initial ideas, right? And what citizens have done, because the city didn't want to engage because they were very afraid of the cost and all the maintenance that are. They actually commissioned residents. They formed an organization. They commissioned an architecture bureau to do the branding. They went down to create a toolbox of items like paving, lighting, and guardrails, but that would be common into all, deliveries of the highlight. They are very different. There was an horticulturist moment in this. It's famous, actually. So you may want to look at this, and if the CIP item for the places that we need to deliver without support or development, this is a place to actually figure out what needs to be done there. This is the moment to say so, and actually to plan for it already. So that's now, that's next month. I would be very interested to hear.
Okay.
Put the parks people in there too, because you've got Peter, I can't remember his last name, but he's the one who's done so much of this stuff in all of the different parks and the connections.
Oh, yes.
And eventually arts as well.
Can't remember his last name.
Yes, he's there.
On the Parks and Rec.
Yeah, and he's also, oh,
He's on Parks and Rec.
okay, yep, okay. Okay. Jeff, Corey, let's go offline and we'll figure out how to set this up. this is kind of cool because it's part of the charter. The charge of this group is to, set up small groups, right? And we're not limited to the people around the table. We can bring in, Corey, and, some of the commission members, just say, we'll keep it pretty tight. I think that'd be a good thing.
You could lead if you'd like.
How about we co-lead? It's my first meeting.
We'll sort that out. So let me just take the quick list. Jeff, Corey, Meg, Pam. And, it would be, we'll talk to Rob Mandel. Be great if you two had an interest. All right.
Do we
I know
have
you're.
Do we have somebody from Crystal City? Because that's part of the action. Oh, you're okay.
Well, it depends on how you consider towers.
It is.
It's east of.
The county considers it to be part of Crystal City, but the civic associations was already Aurora Highlands. That's the confusion of the whole thing, but.
Well, what's the
officially,
main thing
it
is
is.
the folks that are east of.
And you could join the Crystal City Civic Association.
Turn the board.
I think I'm hitting my cat, guys.
All right, so let's, this is great discussion. Thanks for supporting it and,
Yeah, okay, yeah, I need to run now, but keep me posted. I'll be home on the April 9th. And maybe we can ask Eric Castle if he knows of anybody who's particularly skilled in this area from his civic association who could join us from the Crystal City perspective and make sure we have also someone from Ridge to participate.
Thanks, Corey.
All right, okay, guys, I gotta run. Keep me posted.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna switch gears now and we're gonna talk about the library and Carol put together a presentation. Very evocative title and
As soon as you get the view up there. Okay, I think I can go through this fairly quickly because the discussion is the most important part of this. I've been working on this for 9 years now. So there's a lot of history. Think of the next slide, Mike. But just a little bit of history for you, just to go through this. In 2015, Diane Kresh came and talked to the Crystal City Civic Association about a pop-up library, all these visions for things that we could do with libraries and bringing it to Crystal City, where there was no library. This is her speaking to the group. Next one. In August of 2016, we had a community information meeting. And at that point, what is it you want in a library? Next one. In September 2016, the Connection pop-up library opened in the underground with 1,222 square feet. Next. That's the opening, the picture of it down there in the underground. Next. Then 3 years later, after much turmoil and much asking to continue, it closed after 3 years. Next. And then in livability, when we did our framework and our action plan, we incorporated there a walkable permanent library in the Crystal City neighborhood in all of our work. Next one. And then in the two different site plans, the one for 1900 and the one for 2001 South Bell, South Clark Street, those two had a community benefit directly tied to a library that we've been waiting for. Next. And boom, in March, we find out the county asked instead to get 5.8 million instead of the building in Center Park. So that's just a real quick snapshot of some of the history. Next, Mike. Just to show you a little bit what the innovation was. There was a lot of innovation at the point. This is just one of the slides of things that they were doing to entice people to come. Next. This is the opening of it. You see Mark Schwartz on the top left on there, Diane Kresh standing next to him. That was our president of the Crystal City Civic Association. Lots of kids coming and people waiting. Next. What happened? Well, the library budget couldn't handle the staffing costs after 3 years, despite the fact that JBG, which took over from Vornado, and their willingness to extend the lease, but the county said, we don't have the budget for staff, even though electricity and space is paid for. The Oboe and Pat Coffee Shop, which was across the hall, which is a huge draw for the library, closed. Tech shop, closed. And then the traffic now decreased at this point because so much retail was moving out to the street. Afterwards, construction problems in the underground, which closed the 20th Street passageway for this, further affected the traffic flow. This is after the library closed, I admit. Then COVID reduced business in the underground. And since then, JBG's been canceling many of the leases down there. But a full library with a coffee shop, critical element, could renew interest. Next. What did we learn from the pop-up? The apartment dwellers who came loved the convenience of having a library close by in the underground. Foot traffic is essential for a library, largely due to retail and especially a coffee shop. That was when Oboe and Pat closed that things started to drop off. Folks who didn't have library cards dropped in and got them there, didn't even know about a library and got their card. Several got off the metro and got a card. I talked to several of them. The walk-in counts in 2016, 2017 ranged from 753 to 1851 and averaged about 1,500 people visiting this tiny little pop-up library each month. Crystal City's highest demographic is the 25 to 45-year-old range, and this was the group that frequented the pop-up library the most. Families with children enjoyed visiting, and my eyes are getting bad here. I'm trying to read what I've even written here. They enjoyed the reading. Help me out.
Borrowing.
Borrowing reading kits and puzzles. They expressed desire for a children's corner and events after school and on weekends. And it's clear for us what we learned is we need to focus on attracting the younger, larger components of Crystal City residents, a tech focus with material in more modern media and with an assortment that's more selective, space and reading material to make it also something like a reading room or a space to hang out. Demographics, just a little bit of this, and thanks to Matt, I was able to pull some of this together today. It's really kind of squirrely about trying to get demographics for Crystal City, partly because of what we just talked about, and that is, what are you going to count? Are you going to count the Civic Association? Are you going to count what the county considers to be Crystal City? Are you going to count what the census is done with the tracks? It's really rather squirrely on the whole thing. So this is focused more in on National Landing. The population in the 22202 zip code, which is larger than National Landing, has increased 26% since 2000. And Arlington County's own forecast for the Richmond Highway corridor from 2020 to 2050, population growth is expected 117.5%. Please tell that to the Arlington school system. 117% forecast increase from 22,882 to 49,800. Household growth, 115.9%. From 13,989 to 3,200. Housing units growth, 102.7% projected, from 15,983 to 32,400. Jobs growth, adding to people who might traffic through the library, 106.3%, doubling from 50,600 to 104,400. And look, the predicted growth in the Richmond Highway corridor is more than twice that of the RB or the Columbia Pike corridors. That is a very significant fact coming from the county's own profile. I mentioned the accurate population figures are very difficult to do, but today's multifamily housing supply and population, they're closely split between Pentagon City, currently at 52%, and Crystal City, 48,000. But we know at least 1,600 additional new housing units are coming online in Crystal City in the next few years. Some of them already have. So amenities like a library are essential for this growing population. It's not enough to have food and drink and a movie theater. You need to have something cultural. We lost Cinetic Theater. We don't have any performing arts. Without a library, we're focusing in just on people coming here to eat and to drink. This is not going to be readable for you, but I wanted to point out to you, this is the letter from Mark Schwartz to me when I was president of the Crystal City Civic Association in 2019, basically explaining why the pop-up library was closing. And the two things highlighted here are critical. The first is what I just said. Pop-up library has seen decreased foot traffic, lower circulation, lower program attendance as other tenants surrounding the location closed. Thank you, JPG. In particular, the closing of Oboe and Pound directly across the hall in December 2018 was significant. But then look at the next one that I've highlighted down here. What we were being told, oh yeah, we're closing down the pop-up library, but the Penn Place phase development site plan approved in 2013 includes a community facility component sized approximately 20,000 square feet that is slated to be realized with future development of that block. And there'll be ample conversations to go on with this. What happened to the 20,000? The county pulled it away. Thank you, county, very much, and gave it for the high school. Yeah, so it was not a community benefit for 22202. It was an overall Arlington County. So this is what Mark Schwartz is saying in 2019, and obviously it didn't happen. So it's the commitment that really has been lacking about getting the library in Crystal City. So what's our vision? We want to expand library services into one of Arlington's fastest growing neighborhoods of a growing population. It would add energy and amenities to National Landing. We want to integrate the library into the daily lives of Arlington residents geared to our community dwellers. For example, technology, DIY information, tool lending library, events, meetings, study rooms, etc. And some of the things pointed out down here, public computers and printers, family play, read area, children's nook, and after school, 5 to 7, and Saturday morning activities for children. A cafe built into it, privately run, but within the library itself or right next to it. Community features for meeting and socializing. No community space currently exists in Crystal City. Events like author talks, crafts, clubs, etc. It's our vision, what we really would like to see here. But is 8,000 to 10,000 square feet enough? It's a question. What about doing 2 levels of 5,000 square feet instead of trying to stretch it out in one long area? And remembering that the library would be the only county facility east of Route 1. So the question is, could Arlington be as innovative as DC is and as other areas? And I love this quote from the Washingtonian from 2017 about the West End Library in DC. The mysterious Lux building at 23rd and L Streets Northwest was so appealing that some Washingtonians paid people to line up overnight for a chance to purchase the condos on its upper floor. Combination of the condos or apartments with a library is clearly something that should be considered. And these are just pictures of some innovative ideas. Some of them are West End, some of them are other. There's a 2-story one down there on the bottom, for example. So where could it be built? We need to think out of the box. We need innovative ideas. We know that the library needs to be innovative. We know it needs to be close to transportation, like the metro, the Metroway, VRE, and buses. We know it needs to be near foot traffic where people walk. We know it needs to be near retail, including the coffee shop. It could be 2 stories, and it should be exciting or enticing. Before I show the next picture, which is going to get some people yelling at me, can't do this, it's impossible. These are out of the box, innovative thoughts, things that might be considered. Because what happened is Mark Schwartz and Diane Crush turned to us, it was Mike, Eric Hassel, and me at the time, and said, well, this is what we have. We have 5.8 million. Give us some ideas. Where do you think the library should go? Rather than telling us what they thought it could be. So, okay, here are some ideas. Looking at this map, don't scream at me, Jane. 1800 South Bell. A 2-story building, you could use the underground and the ground level. Instead of doing the design that has been put forward and that hasn't been approved yet, according to Matt, for 1800 South Bell where Cinetic is. And it's right there close to the metro, right connection underground to the whole thing. And if you look, it's kind of hard to see, but the number is down there. It shows you right in the middle. 101 South 12th Street, approved several years ago for a commercial building, an office building. It's not going anywhere because the market dropped out with COVID and remote working. No tenant yet for that building. Instead, it could be repurposed to a 2-story building. It could have underground and ground. It could have offices above it if you still wanted to do office. 1671 Crystal Square Arc. That's where the former Rite Aid was, in the underground. It's a very large space that has been vacant for several years. There's no proposed tenant down there. It is close to the metro. It is close to the landing where people gather and they play games, especially every Friday night. And it's a very heavily trafficked area. 2120 Crystal Plaza Arc. That's the other side of 20th Street, is close to where the pop-up library used to be. The Crystal Boutique is closing down there, for example. So it's another large space area there where there are no tenants at this point. The Sage, an Elcor building, which is on the corner of 12th and Eads Street. There may actually be a tenant going in there. I'm not sure. I think Ben said he thought he read something about that, but it could be ground floor with apartments above. The Lenox Club, which is 401 12th Street, again, ground floor with apartments above. But if you look at these, the first 3 are the the 1800 South Bell, 1671 Crystal Square underground. Those 2 are the most centrally located, followed by 2120 Crystal Plaza Arc. But these are thinking out of the box suggestions of things that we have come up with. We're putting forward for consideration. And finally, to stimulate the discussion, what's next? Can Arlington County and the developers talk about a repurposed or a new building? Perhaps design 2 stories with residents above it, taking what the West End Library has done in DC. How can the community and livability help in the design process? Could a donor like Amazon or somebody else fund this, promote a library for this growing community as an amenity that is sorely needed? And Rob Mandel's not here either, but can the National Landing bid help on all of this? So this is essentially what we've come up with. We were asked to do a presentation for this, and these are some of the ideas that we will be sending back. So with that, I yield the floor.
Thanks, thanks, Carol. This is a great presentation. I think the West End Library and the data you pulled from the pop-up really points to a great opportunity. And as Eric said, it's the only facility that's going to be on the books for east of. And I really like the idea of thinking much more expansively about it. I guess those sites, I think everybody feels a little underwhelmed by the sites, but I really like the idea. I know, Takis, you had some thoughts. I know that you'd like to share those now, or in terms of.
I'm just going to tell you that first of all, libraries is doing, I was back, told us yesterday at the work session that she's planning to have a quasi-strategic plan. So I do think that thinking in the frame that Carol, mindset that Carol just presented it is the right frame. This is truly a very strong growing corridor. You need a central place, right? A central place, and then libraries function as such. So we need to think very creatively about how to locate such an absolute here. I can tell you that when the deal with GVG did go forward and we had this agreement of $6 million, the immediate thinking was, oh my God, only $6 million, we need a lot more there. So this is and by the way, even the deliverable in this site plan was not really the size functionality that you mentioned. I'm happy to see that you're thinking about the cohabitation of, cafe or bistro and then the library space with all these functions embedded in there, not necessarily a community center, but a library that community center would be different. So I'm very game for this. I'm very committed to figure out a way to get the library done. I remember myself conversations about this during the HQ2 early conversations. And I was always thinking that this kind of facility would be delivered in plan, and it hasn't materialized. You're basically looking at where is the center of this building, right? Where do we put? Because it's not only identifying where the center is, but the moment that we decide to put something there, it will be the center. This will effectively be the center. So
That was why Center Park was so good.
yes. So I'm really very interested in this conversation. I will be as good as I can as a partner here and to push that as good as I can to get it done. This will be a CIP item, obviously, right? I think that we need to recalibrate the type of library. One of the questions yesterday and offline, or ones of these, is do we really understand how the relationship of a central library and branch library has to work? Because what we are seeing is that we begin to grow as a community, as a place that needs more than one central place, and the branch libraries can be the hub and spoke, like satellite branches that can be you can deliver. They are very important for neighborhoods that have them sharing their own, like carving and all this. But we don't have a good grasp of the architecture of the library system should be in response to the new population growth around this corridor. So if you ask me, my gut feeling, that's my personal gut feeling, and transferring to the is I see here the equivalent need that a central library is covering the Russell Coast corridor for library. I see here an equivalent size of it. Now, that's not a small thing. That needs to be discussed in this. The other thing that you mentioned is the other cultural needs, like performance spaces, which is another piece to that. But I definitely was abused from the idea that what Crystal City needs is another Shillington. I am past that personally. I think that this is it used to be that our best delivery of branch libraries was the model of the Shillington Library. I do think that here we are not. And this has to be far more ambitious delivery. Because it just has to serve more people, different demographics. It will be accessible by metro. It will be literally the center, and it will probably be more popular than the central library because the moment that this will be there, it will be probably more closer to metro and far more modern building and modern delivery. So that will shift the dynamics of the entire system. So I really am very observant of what the Dan Crashes wants to do with the consultancy that she already chartered, and I think that we have to introduce this conversation. This is why I wanted to invite you to to present to the county board and, in May, so that we have a very clear positioning of the board and the manager on the order of magnitude of the project. It's a good thing to start with 6 million pocket, right? Earmarked for that.
I think what we're discovering is something that we've known for a long time, which is that for years and years and years, the county did not invest in Crystal City. And as a consequence of that, all of the dirt is owned privately, other than a median strip or two. So basically, what's going to have to happen is that there's going to have to be a density trade-off or some kind of negotiation that some people probably will object to. But the only way we can see it happening on this scale is through that kind of a process, because we're now paying for the fact that we may have the most populous neighborhood or zip code, but we're suffering from the lack of county investment for decades. And as a result, we don't have a place to put it without negotiating with the landowners. And that's just going to make it more costly and challenging, I think. But I absolutely support a kick butt kind of major facility for, especially because we not only have a population that needs it now, but over the next couple of decades, many, many people living here, even if the office market stays flat.
Mike, a couple things. Carol, could you go to the map again with central locations, and then also Jill has made them.
Okay, great. Also, we're being held to a pretty hard limit here, so.
Yeah. In any case, I'm really ready to discuss that. I recognize the order of magnitude of the need to begin with. And we have to be honest with you about what are the resources that we can master. And you're right about that. I mean, it took us 6 years to understand that we are past Iraq.
Right.
And then now we have a residential neighborhood that's not anymore an office.
So I'd like to say it. I think we're gonna have to convene another meeting on the library. So that's it. Let's hit Matt and then Jill. Matt,
You can see them, yeah, the points off.
okay, Jill, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was wondering, with the planning for a library, what would be the plan for our current and existing library? Would we be able to retain it, or would it be taken for the school? Or what's the thinking on that?
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, Jill, and I think we need to think of the two of them together and figure out as a community how we wanted to do that. Takis is making the point that this area will need something on a par with Central Library up in Virginia Square. So we might want to think about instead of having two small little libraries, we want to have one big library and one really killer community center, as opposed to, a bunch of little places. That's something I think we'll have to take up as a community and kind of think that through.
Yeah, will we be able to maintain something in Aurora Highlands so that this part of the community is served too?
Yeah, that might be something we talk about, maybe we reverse it, and the big library is in Crystal City. And there's a little branch, or there's a kids library or something, something here. But I'm not saying how it has to be. I'm thinking aloud, and that's a conversation we need to have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I didn't expect that we were going to be held to a hard limit today, but I think we're going to need to, we'll need to follow up on the library. What I'll do is I'll work with Matt, and I'll send a note out to everybody. And those folks who are interested, we'll convene a library specific meeting.
We need to send this to Diane, March 4th.
Okay, great. Yeah, that, so the outline review, we will communicate that through email.
If anybody's interested, West End Library, some lovely pictures of what they did in DC.
Okay,
What do we think about biennial?
biennial report. I will send out a email. Biennial report in short will be about a 3-page summary with a lot of information. I'll send a note out to everyone. Yeah, as I say.
Yeah.
And I knew Jay was gonna kill me.
That's
You know,
great.
What's a footprint if you have two stories?
It's a very great place to be.
Well, it depends. I mean,
He's talking about something big.
yeah, he
I
is.
think-
Diane Kresh was saying 10,000.
10,000.
Why I did the 2-story.
Coordinate with you.